modality where we come together to constitute one army for the new Sudan. Finally, is achieving peace through track 3. What are we saying on this? We are saying that if you cannot achieve peace and self-determination through track 1, that is, you cannot achieve peace through a negotiated political settlement, the regime simply refuses to make any concession, especially on the issue of religion and state. Then what do we do? We must remove this regime through track 2 by the modality of the NDA. But if that does not also work, what do? This is where we have evolved the issue of track 3, peace through development. And what we are saying here is that as you liberate areas, establish a civil administration, establish law and order, have peace and stability through the civil structures, and start development. Don't wait for a political agreement on track 1 or on track 2. So is a interview, مثلا, or في then you have achieved already your self-determination. Why do you want it to be approved by Khartoum? If you are in Maridi, you have achieved self-determination. If you are in Rumbek, you have achieved self-determination. In the Muntazir, do what you need to do in that area in terms of socio-economic development. And that's precisely what we are doing. So in all our areas, the liberated areas, which are SPLM, SPLA, we have started development in earnest. It requires doing a lot of things. It requires the reorganization of the SPLM leadership and military fronts as by way of ensuring collective and more compact leadership in the conduct of the liberation struggle. That's one. It requires full activation of the SPLM Secretariat to establish SPLM structures at all levels, from the village to the national, and ending in our second SPLM National Convention, which we hope to hold this year. It requires the creation of organic units of the SPLA into fronts and transforming the SPLA into an organic army of the new Sudan so that it converges with other armed elements of the NDA. It requires the consolidation of civil authority of the new Sudan, an active encouragement of the growth of civil society and civil society institutions, all engaged in the liberation struggle in various ways. It requires the restoring the legitimacy and authority of our people over the relief structures through the Memorandum of Understanding which we have signed with various NGOs. It requires the creation of our own currency, the currency for the new Sudan, Gurusha. Because you cannot develop a modern economy without Gurush. Money is like the lubricant of a locomotive with respect to the economy. And so we are going ahead with the production of the new Sudan pound. That will include establishment of a central bank, commercial bank, financial institutions, forex bureaus, and so forth. Others are doing it. Somalia, mindum hakuma markazia, lakin adum do. We have had problems, of course, printing money, but we have resolved that. It requires, of course, establishment of radio SPLA so that our message is out and our people know about it. Radio SPLA, Zaman Khan Shakal Khalis, who can very popular, and it carried out our message. I assure you that before our next anniversary, the radio SPLA will be working again. It requires promotion of peace, grassroots peace and reconciliation among our people, and dialogue with all the political groups in the country. And that is precisely what we are doing. And as you have seen, my brother, Dr. Yak Machar, in the SPLM delegation here, is a sign of that unity. And we'll continue to bring all the various political forces and individuals together. The year 2002, we have declared it as a year of peace, unity, and reconciliation. And I'm ready to meet anybody, any group, anytime, any place. In terms of what we have done so far on track 3, and what we need to do, we need an efficient network of roads so that our people can move, goods and services can move. I was traveling from Kampala to Rumbek recently to meet the Minister Claire Short, and it took me 30 hours. From Kampala to Kaya on the border, it took me 10 hours. It is 516 kilometers. But from Kaya to Rumbek, it took me 20 hours. It is 575 kilometers. It's almost the same distance, double the time. That's because of the badness of the road. So we need to maintain our roads, construct new roads and maintain the old ones. Construction of a telecommunications network to link the various regions and counties of the New Sudan. It requires investment. وبعض منكم في الدياسبرا إذا في زول عمل شوية قروش, you are welcome to go and invest. It requires self-reliance in terms of food and encouragement of trade and investment in the liberated areas and in neighboring countries. It requires exports of our products such as gum, Arabic, and oil seeds. And we are doing this. We are now advertising ourselves in the internet as the biggest organic farm in the world. And indeed we are. We guarantee that any sesame seeds you buy from the New Sudan will be pesticide-free, will be fertilizer-free, no modified foods, no mad cow disease. It requires institutional building and human resource development on the correct basis. And so we are now in the liberated areas running more than 3,000 primary schools. We have at least 16 senior secondary schools. Rumbek Senior Secondary School is functioning full blast. I visited it recently. So under the 16 senior secondary schools, we have just, the end of last year, established our first university level college. It's an institute. It is called IDEAS. It will Institute for Development, Environmental and Agricultural Studies. It will give from short courses of 2 weeks, of 3 months, of 6 months for immediate needs, like agricultural extension workers and so forth. Teachers for primary schools that need to have refresher training. From these short courses all the way to university level education. So we are taking our first students this year that will start first year, and hopefully in 4 years' time, we will have our first graduates from the New Sudan. And so you are welcome to contribute to this nation building by whatever you do here or by going back home to contribute in whatever ways, even through private business, through investment. Fizol fi Zanderland 2 years ago, who made أكثر من $80,000 from agriculture by producing surplus grain which was bought by NGOs for deficit areas in Bahar al-Ghazal. And so this thing is going on. The schools are being built, hospitals are being built, and on a community level basis, organizations are springing up that are providing these social services. It requires the organization of our people abroad in diaspora for effective contribution in all these fields. And so I make this appeal to you to contribute in whatever ways that are within your possibilities. I would like to conclude this section of Peace Through Development by emphasizing again the role of the youth, to whom the future belongs. The youth should organize and rally behind the third track, and we are doing this internally inside our country by encouraging youth organizations, encouraging women's organizations. And these are important segments of our population, the women and youth, contributing to development, both on the third track and on the second track of the NDA. There are lots of women in the diaspora, in Europe and America, and so I appeal for your membership, either directly as a member of the NDA, or through an organization, political organization that belongs to the NDA, like the SPLM and the SAF, which are now one. We should work to improve our organizational forms among you here in the diaspora. And the contribution will be great, especially to our Eastern Front, which is the NDA front. Finally, I've taken a lot of time. I said before that this was going to be a dialogue. I'm afraid it is turning into a monologue. I'm sorry. And so let me quickly conclude and summarize. In terms of the military and political situation, which is the last subject matter I talked about before, in terms of the political situation, in the form of briefing, the biggest development that is influencing or impacting on the Sudanese political situation, I believe, is the September 11th events in New York and Washington. As I said before, the regime is trying to use this in order to be to transform itself into an alternative to itself, and this must be prevented by building the NDA, and that is what we have been doing in the recent meetings of the NDA in Asmara, in which we reassured ourselves that the NDA is the only vehicle that can lead to peace in the country, a comprehensive and just peace, and that will include all the political forces in the country. The other issues, I've already talked about them. Our agreement with the SPDF of Dr. Yagmachar, who is here, this will consolidate our unity. Our agreement with the Sudan Alliance Forces of Abdullah Muqatil Abdul Aziz Khalid would also consolidate the unity of the NDA. Our agreement with the PNC of Turabi, some of you may not agree with me on this, but it will increase dialogue among the political forces in the country. The final issue is the military situation. Despite what the NIF, the propaganda of the NIF, I want to assure you that all our military fronts behave. There has been, for the last, since 1997, when we went on a major offensive, there has been no major reverse in our military fortunes, except for Western Bahr al-Ghazal, that is Raja, and which is an objective which we took and lost. That is in the nature of war. War consists of battles lost and battles won. But that does not mean a loss of the war. We only took Raja in June. We lost it in October. Just like Kurmuk, we lost Kurmuk twice, and we took it 3 times. So not only Kurmuk and Raja, the situation is such that the modality of the NDA, I believe, and I assure you, will work. The combination between الانتفاضة في خرطوم والمدن الأخرى مع unified military command of the NDA is a modality about which the NDA can do very little, about which the NIF can do very little. The NIF, when they came to power in 1989, analyzed the situation and identified the threats to their rule. One threat was the SPLA. Second threat is the Intifada. The third threat is the Sudanese army, because ma hakum. And so the NIF systematically worked to destroy these 3. Of course, the forces of the Intifada are the trade union movement, the youth movement, the women movement, and the NIF worked to destabilize these structures. They also worked to destabilize the SPLM, SPLA, and they literally destroyed the Sudanese army. And so the NIF knew how to respond to threats against it, given its very vast experience since the 60s and the 50s. But there is a combination, and I have no problem saying this, they can hear it. There is a combination about which they can do nothing. The convergence between the forces of the Intifada and the forces of the armed struggle in the modality of the NDA, there is nothing the NIF can do about this. And I'm sure that combination will eventually bring the NIF down and usher our country in a new era. This is the last part of my presentation, and I would then move to our dialogue. And so, without much ado, let me summarize before I give you the floor. In terms of the roadmap from vision to achievement of our objectives, I have argued that the vision of the movement is correct. There is no shortcut to freedom. The New Sudan is the most viable method for achieving self-determination through a three-track approach. That is, self-determination can be achieved through a negotiated political settlement, that is track 1. It can be achieved through the modality of the NDA, that is track 2. It can be achieved endogenously through peace, through development, that is track 3. And I leave you with the challenge that if anybody has another track, if you have track 4, I'll be willing to discuss this with you. But I believe we are on track. The movement is on track with self-determination on these 3 tracks. There are examples. Example of the Polisario, for example. Now, self-determination can also is a double-edged sword. You can use it to achieve your objective, whether it is the confederation or the new Sudan you want, or an independent Southern Sudan you want, you can achieve it through self-determination. It can be used also against you, actually to destroy self-determination. That's exactly what the King of Morocco did with respect to the Polisario. With the Polisario, the issue of self-determination was very advanced. There's a Security Council resolution on self-determination. The Sahara Arab Republic was even recognized by the OAU. So the King of Morocco, instead of swimming against the current of self-determination, swam with it in order to destroy it from within. And so they smuggled a lot of the best way to achieve the objective of self-determination, and self-determination, by the way, does not necessarily lead to independence. That's a mistake many people make. They say, we want self-determination so that we have an independent Southern Sudan. That's a tautological nonsense. Why would you want self-determination that leads to independence? Self-determination can lead either to independence or to a union. That's the meaning of self-determination. Otherwise, it is no longer self-determination. But can it house independence? Madu gula now self-determination. Gula adil ka house independence. And of course, you fight it out. But if we are to be logically consistent, you must allow that self-determination mumkin to lead towards an independent Southern Sudan, or an independent Darfur for that matter. It doesn't have to be Southern Sudan. I was reading the literature of some movement in Darfur the other day, and they were calling for an independent state in Darfur. The Sultanate of the Masali kan andum itafagia ma British or French long time ago during the colonial period, and that agreement has just expired. And so the Masali are going to the International Court to plead and to argue with the British and the French that agreement yomdak intact. So you can have an independent state in Darfur as well. That can also be achieved through the exercise of the right of self-determination. So the movement is on track on all the 3 tracks. And I ask you to contribute in any track you are comfortable with. Can under Guterres to contribute on track 1, we ask for your contribution. Is under Guterres to contribute on track 2, we ask for your contribution. Under Guterres to contribute on track 3, we ask for your contribution. At the end of the day, I assure you that the SPLA will continue the struggle until the objectives of our people are achieved. Thank you very much.